that job. But I'm on vacation right now to be here with you. This is my hobby, the fire department. And Bob Murphy, a longtime chief and board member for the fire department, understands how much time it can take. Thanks for having me here.
You feel talking loud enough to go.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yep.
Yeah.
We can shut that window, that door.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll shut that, guys.
Yeah, so the fire department is faced with a great challenge out here on the peninsula. There's just a few factors that make it very difficult to provide fire and medical aid service on the Samoa Peninsula from the bridge south. Technically, it's true of Manila as well. We'll leave Manila out of this conversation since they're really the fire department. What we have from the bridge south on the peninsula, I should preface this by saying this group's interested in economic vitality around Humboldt Bay. Fire medical aid service is important to that. It's important to communities to live in a place, but it's also important to businesses and their workers. I'll give you a classic example about worker safety. Fox Farm and their leadership has always been acutely aware of their exposure to tsunami risk and have worked with me in my day job very closely to educate their staff, provide information, make sure they have an evacuation route, an evacuation site, and to conduct drills. And that's very critical for Fox Farm to have people willing to work out there at their facility in Fairview. So safety is important for industry and business as well. So back to the challenges. We are far enough from other metropolitan centers around the Bay, Arcata and Eureka, so that fire service agencies in those regions really don't want to come out this far to provide medical aid and fire service because it draws them too far from their tax base. So a person in Arcata would not like it if the Arcata Fire Board decided to take over the peninsula because that means that an entire engine would be out here doing resuscitation on a heart attack victim, leaving the entire city of Arcata down one engine for a cluster of 50 homes in Fairview. So it generally is not viewed as favorable for these two metropolitan, relatively speaking, large fire departments to take over the peninsula. So while we're adjacent to some large fire departments, we're just a little too far for those fire departments to provide fire medical aid on the peninsula. How do I know this, you might ask? I've asked both departments over multiple years. They've always politely and respectfully said, no thank you, we can't take over your district. So that leaves us with this small fire department out here on this sand spit. Now fire departments are generally paid for by fees that we place on businesses and residences. There's not enough people living on the peninsula to properly fund a fire department. There really never has been. For many decades, we had two functioning pulp mills that carried a lion's share of the financial burden to keep a fire department viable. They're gone. We've been in a financial spiral ever since. It's been a struggle. It's just gotten worse and worse for this little fire department. And one of the other considerations is while we just have a few homes out here, we have significant industrial lands that are ripe for development and use for economic vitality in the region. And then we have incredible recreational venues. The BLM land, the airport, the drag strip, remote control plane. Now we have ecotourism along the bay and at the airport. And then we have all the pullouts along New Navy Base Road. The last time, it was many years ago, BLM did a count, they had 160,000 vehicle trips out to the North Spit Recreation Area in 1 year, and that was actually 10 years ago. I've seen the use rates go up. Humboldt County improved two of the parking areas along New Navy Base Road. They're constantly full of people. So our little fire department with almost no tax base gets to deal with industrial fires, it gets to deal with residential fires, elderly families that are home during the work week, and then we have to deal with vehicular accidents along the Navy Base Road with all that traffic, and then all the recreational accidents. We're talking shark attacks, we're talking falling off jetties and breaking legs, rolling quads, crashing small ultralight planes, you name it, and we get it out there on the spit. So we have a pretty complex and demanding call volume and call profile. Did I mention that responding in a salty sand environment is very hard on equipment? So we have rust on our fire trucks, we get to wax them more often than most. Everything adds up to a burden that is very, very disproportionate to our revenue generation capability out there. And we have explored every possible way to make this right. One of them, frankly, when we're tired, is to say, screw it. I'm packing it in, I'm going to spend my spare time doing what I love, which is rebuilding old wood boats or fiddling around in my shop, and I'm not going to spend my time. But what happens if we do that? Our kid and Eureka have already said they won't take us over. So we fall under CAL 5. Everybody's fire rates triples from $40 a year per house to $150, and their service level goes down dramatically, including us. Now I have a child, I'd like to have somebody come out and respond in a reasonable time if we have an
Quick
accident.
question, is the CAL FIRE, is that dispersed over the entire area?
So
And
we would
the
be,
price goes up,
we
or
would be
just for here?
for the peninsula. If we're not covered by a local fire department, we fall under CAL FIRE. The nearest fire stations for CAL FIRE are Trinidad and Fort Pima. And so the cost would go up, but the response times would go up, service would go down. It's a bleak scenario. And so what do? We pull our pants back on, we go back to work and keep this damn fire department going. But with some of that vigor, we look for bold, innovative solutions to make this thing work. That's a lot of preamble to tell you how we got to a CSD idea. The idea behind a CSD is to try, we have to grow this department to have some way to cover our base operational costs. We have to do audits. We have to have an admin person, a bookkeeper. All those functions are currently volunteer, except audits we can't do internally. They have to be external. They're very expensive. So the notion was born several years ago, 8 years ago, to convert the fire department into a full-service community service district. Now, we looked at examples around the Bay. Manila Community Services District is except for fire, provides a full spectrum of services. So we've, over the years, Chris has been very helpful in talking to us about what that would look like, the challenges. One of the challenges is when a community service district gets too small, it's hard to cover. You have requirements on water quality, sampling, and wastewater treatment facilities required. There's some size it just gets really challenging. So we've been doing some comparisons, and this CSD we're talking about will finish out at about 450 ratepayers on the peninsula. And Manila has how many again? 300. 300. So we're not as, we could be even a little bigger than Manila. So if Manila can make it, by golly, now they have a brilliant general manager. So that's part of it. So the CSD idea was born. We looked into it. The big problem is the cost. It costs a lot of money to convert from a fire department to a CSD. The initial estimates were about $75,000. We blew right past that number. We didn't have the money to do it. It's kind of a catch-22. We're poor. We need a solution. We're in debt, not just poor. We're in debt. We need a solution. We can't afford the solution. The Samoa project came along. We got wind that the Samoa project needed a public entity to manage their wastewater treatment facility as per the regulatory bodies involved. Water Quality Control Board, Coastal Commission. They have a bad history of small developments happening. They put a wastewater treatment facility in, the developer splits, and there's no one there to take care of it. There's no public entity. So we saw an opportunity. I approached Dan Johnson many years ago and said, look, I know it'll cost a little more, but if you're willing to fund a community services district formation for the entire peninsula, I think it would be really good for the entire peninsula community, but it'll also be good for your project. And this is the pitch I made to him back then. I knew that LAFCO likes economy of scale. They like bigger entities. Their preferred solution, in fact, was the town of Samoa, the rest of the peninsula, to annex to Manila. That was pursued as the optimal solution because it puts more ratepayers and more services under one government entity. That's considered efficiency of government, by the way, in LAFCO vernacular. So Manila respectfully declined. The next preferred solution that LAFCO looked at was the fire department expanding to become a community services district for the entire peninsula. So I pitched to Dan, look, if LAFCO likes it better, you're going to have an easier time. So that's the benefit I offered up to Dan Johnson. The other benefit is in-kind services. He could have formed a CSD just for the town of Samoa. He would have had to pay for everything himself, but it would have been cheaper. If he worked with the fire department, we would do some of the labor, some of the footwork, some of the advocacy with the community, and so he got in-kind services. And he responded favorably to it. He started writing checks. He's still writing checks. It costs up to about $150,000. We think it's going to cost about $150,000 more. And Dan's been very agreeable to continue to fund that peninsula-wide effort. We have a public protest hearing. Where we're at in this process is we have a public protest hearing tonight, actually at 4 o'clock. This is an opportunity. There's enough opposition to stop this in its tracks right now. I'm cautiously optimistic that the small opposition we have is not going to be able to stop this thing at this point. If we get through this protest hearing, we go to election in November, and then all registered voters in the peninsula get to vote on whether to do this. So that's sort of a snapshot of the history and where it's coming from. The vision we have, and the reason why we think this is a good idea, is that if the town is fully developed, as proposed, and there's some people who don't believe that's going to happen, but if it's fully developed, this community service district will have, as I said, between 450 and 500 ratepayers. There'll be some staff. How many staff do you guys have, Chris? For How many staff do you have? 3.5 staff. So even if we only had 3.5 staff, which is just back of an envelope, we should be able to afford 3.5 staff with 450 ratepayers, right? Our intention is to cross-train all those staff members as firefighters. One of our greatest challenges out here, and I kind of already set the groundwork for this, is that everybody who lives out here works somewhere else. And so we have no one here that can be a community volunteer that can cover those response calls Monday through Friday at the time. The only way we can do that is to hire professional firefighters. That's very expensive, way outside of our budget. But if we can have a wastewater treatment plant operator, or a general repair person who repairs broken water pipe, or a Parks and Rec person who's full-time, salaried, with benefits, we can cross-train them as firefighters. You might ask yourself, you might be saying to yourself, that's a little unorthodox, Troy. Is that going to work? I honestly don't know for sure, but let me just tell you, we're in a position where we need to do something bold. This is our bold solution. We can provide all that coverage at a fraction of the cost of hiring professional firefighters. So we're very excited about that potential solution. Now, innovation is what we've already done over the years. For example, we have a resident program. It's the only one in the entire region. We have an old schoolhouse in the fire department. We converted rooms, schoolrooms to living quarters, and we have 6 young firefighters who are typically students at HSU who live there and in exchange provide coverage and service to the community. So that's an example already how we're being innovative to make this work out on the peninsula. The one problem is they're at school during the work week, so they can't be there during the work week. Now, the staff idea of having the CSD staff provide fire and medical aid coverage is not actually brand new. I wish I could say I came up with the idea. It's what happened for decades when there were functioning pulp mills and lumber mills here on the town. So back in the day, the staff that worked at the pulp mills were authorized by their employers to respond to fire calls. Correct me if I'm wrong on that, Richard? Thumbs up? Mostly right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's an old business model that we're trying to revitalize and use to face our future challenges. So that's one of the benefits that those staff can be in place to provide fire medical aid service. We also have the opportunity to just have economies. More services under one entity than we have. We can spread the cost to run the thing over more ratepayers and more services. So those are the 2 sort of kernels of motivation for pursuing the CSD. It also turns out it opens us up for tremendous grant opportunities, and I think this feeds back really directly into this group's interest in economic vitality. It took a while for me to get this. A local consulting firm was trying to convince me of this for a while, and I finally woke up. And let me just put it in perspective now that we pursued this. We put out a request for qualifications for on-call consulting firms to basically come work for the fire district for free, absolutely on contingency, that they could then go try to get grants on behalf of the fire department. And their benefit would be that they go do some work on the grants, and then the community would get these grants. Just since that started, just since we started talking about it being a community services district, we currently have about $14 million in grants in play, grant applications in play through that process. So the community out here is actually really a great candidate for grant opportunities, but a fire department isn't a valid applicant for many of those grants. So I think in that regard, it's really exciting to see that this community service district could go after a recreation grant. There was a tremendous grant opportunity recently we couldn't apply for as a fire department. As a CSD, we could have. It was a, what was that trails grant for? How much was that for, Jack, for the trails grant? 1.5 million? Yeah. The Harbor District graciously stepped in and acted as a surrogate for the nascent, unformed CSD and applied for the grant, but we weren't successful in that round. I think once the CSD is successful, we'd be a very strong candidate for that kind of trail grant. So I think there's a lot of exciting opportunities that the CSD will bring beyond what we originally envisioned. Now, some of the questions I got during lunch is, what if the small project doesn't go as planned? What if not as many homes are built? Is this big CSD going to be settled with staff costs and overhead and no way to fund it? That's a very good and insightful question. Working with LAFCO staff, the fire department is building a very cautious approach. We're just basically going to build a framework of a CSD, and then we're only going to add services as the fee structure is in place to pay for those services. So for example, if some of the homes aren't built in Samoa, we won't put in place a fee structure, and we won't put in place the service that would cost money to that home. So we're going to scale this thing as needed to meet the demands of the peninsula. Another example of that is that the Harbor District has an outfall pipe that's being viewed as a potential use for dredge deposits or wastewater disposal. That's being looked at very carefully and cautiously, but the reality is, if that were to happen, a community service district would need to be on site to help manage that use of the outfall pipe. And so there's opportunities for synergy on the peninsula in the Humboldt Bay region by having a community service district out here in Samoa and Fairhaven. So that was sort of an overview. Did I hit anything you guys, did I miss from a district perspective? or from a resident perspective in Samoa there, Richard?
Well, let me just say, you know, when you were talking about how many years it's actually been over a decade.
Over a decade.
I was a director on the Samoa Peninsula Fire Department with Troy, and that was back in 2008, I think, is what, right about 7 and 8.
Wow, yeah, it's been that long.
Pushing it. And of course, you've been doing a yeoman's job of keeping the fire district going. This is really its only chance of survival, would you say?
Yes, I also heard during lunch there's some risks associated with this. Well, in some ways, it is a bold decision. There's some uncharted territory here. It's bold, and there are always risks with bold moves. But our alternative is to struggle into insolvency slowly and with agony. And all the folks involved are really committed to this fire department, committed to this community, and we don't want to see that happen. We want to go ahead and be bold, take this move, and make it work for the community and the fire department.
Questions, it's open for questions.
Yeah.
So what's the story on the wastewater? Seems like there was some sort of synergy you could have around that. And does that affect Manila also?
So Manila has their own wastewater treatment solution they have for many years, and it's working very well, and they have a rate there base that pays for it. So there's no connection potential between Manila and Samoa. Samoa is currently working towards permitting a wastewater treatment facility and disposal that's on site, kind of a big leach field, and they're working through the permitting process on that. There's been some discussion about possibly the Samoa Town project working to use the outfall pipe owned by the Harbor District. Is it okay if I talk about this in this venue? And so those discussions are ongoing, and the outcome is uncertain. But if that were to play out that way, the Community Services District, instead of managing the on-site disposal that would be part of the Samoa Town, it would instead manage the delivery of the effluent to the outfall pipe, and it would basically rent capacity from the Harbor District to put that effluent into the outfall pipe. There are many discussions with the public that would need to be had, and the regulatory agencies, so it's just very early discussions about possible solutions. Each solution has its own drawbacks and benefits. It looks like the regulatory agencies are much more favorable, view the outfall pipe use as more favorable to the on-site disposal.
To having leach fields.
Having leach fields, yeah. The premise is that when it's disposed of on-site, it has to be, it goes into the water table and then moves into the bay, whereas in the outfall pipe is so far offshore, it gets put in the general ocean currents, and so it doesn't impact the ecology of the bay and the water table.
You're making some problems with that, yeah.
Yeah, I hate to paraphrase the regulatory agencies, but that's my understanding from listening to conversations. And Jack, correct me if I got any of that wrong. Okay. Yeah, Ken?
So I've been following this for a long time, and I'm glad that maybe Dan Johnson's finally admitted it actually was a condition of the Coastal Commission that we use the alcohol, what some of the paperwork I came across. And of course, he denied that in the supervisory chamber's representatives simply. Good to see it going that direction.
Well, it's being explored. I wouldn't say it's going that direction.
It's going that direction.
Yeah.
So I work with the water board. But anyways, it satisfies all of these. Of course, as you're aware, this process is part of what was circumvented 35 years ago when there was supposed to be a regional system. And Eureka, of course, may eventually be using that same outfall there. If that does come, and that's common sense. So I'm really glad to see that, you know, Jack will have a cash cow there through the outfall. I think that's what's in the environment's best interest, and I strongly support your facilitating that particular portion of that project. I think it's paramount that we look toward that fix. It was a good fix 35 years ago, and it's still a good fix now. So the question I have, that was kind of a statement, so the original, but a statement of support. But the question I have, and it's paramount amongst a lot of people in our community, the current CDI uses for these industrial uses, which affects all this, includes general agriculture, and we don't really want to see this area turn into pot central. And so I didn't know whether your community service district is kind of banking upon that. Everybody else seems to be. That's the future of Humboldt County, according to some people, and we'd like to see it not be the future out here on the Samoa Peninsula. So so are you guys going to support?
It sounds like there was a question in there. I can
there is. Are you guys going to support general agriculture, which is basically the pot thing on the peninsula as far as a service district?
You know, I'm only one board member, and so I can't speak on behalf of the entire board. We did write a letter of support of the temporary zoning change, but that did not include language about use for general agriculture. So that's the only position we took officially, is that we supported the zoning change. But, so I can't really state about how we feel about, general agricultural use in the peninsula. I will say the fire department supported that because it allows tenants to use the vacant buildings, which provides a revenue stream. So the fire department had a direct connection to that we want to see that happen. But in general, the CSD is about putting in place an infrastructure for provision of services, but we're not really in the business, we won't be in the business of choosing what businesses or what economic activity happens. That's for others, to be looking at. The regulatory, we're not going to be issuing any building permits or any zoning. It won't be our role whatsoever. All that will still reside with the county.
Right, and that's appreciated because until that's legalized by the federal thing, anybody who was taking that to the bank as far as the cash flow would be possibly circumvented, so.
I can tell you none of the fiscal analysis are we counting on that.
Great, good for you guys.
Basic ratepayers based on water, sewer for Samoa, parks for Samoa, and for Fairhaven it's only going to be fire, medical aid, and water just like they have now. And no one's asking that question because no one here I presume lives in Fairhaven, but that question comes up. What's this going to mean for Fairhaven? Because there's going to be more services for the town of Samoa, and it turns out community services district, like cities, can have zones of service. So one zone of service will be for Samoa. It will have more services. It will have wastewater treatment, parks and recreation, and open space. It'll actually be paid for by the homeowners. It'll have street lighting. It'll be paid for by the homeowners here in Samoa, and it will have what was that? Water. And water. So, but all that will be one zone of service for Samoa.
What is their average increased cost you anticipate for those services beyond what they're paying now?
That's still being carefully analyzed, but there's caps on those costs based on state law, and so those caps are being kept close watch on. There's a percentage of median income that you can spend, you can charge for any of those. There's also the Prop 218 process for setting those fees. So all those are yet to be set.
Sure. But based upon the caps, what would you say would be then if you went all the way to those caps?
So I can't pull those numbers off the top of my head. I can tell you that I think sewer is about $60 a month, if I remember correctly, is what the number that was come up with. Water was about $28 a month. It's off my memory, and those are very typical what you see around Humboldt Bay region right now. So they are very typical.
So they're already paying $90 or thereabouts for those services.
And that's what people are paying. What are your rates? Your rates are a little lower in Manila, I believe, for water.
Yeah, we're less than $30.
Yeah. So, but you don't know off the top of your head what your retail residents pay.
It depends upon your size of your pipe and your connections.
We looked at City, Arcata, and Eureka, and adjacent community services districts, including Manila.
So they were 30 for sewer and water? I didn't hear that.
No, we're about $28 for water, and sewer is $38.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's not far off.
And that's representative of Eureka. Eureka is actually a little lower. But
okay. Yeah, and if you live in Samoa, you're spreading some of the overhead costs over fewer homes. And so what's going to happen is people who buy a home in Samoa will it's real estate disclosure law, they will have all the costs, the total cost of ownership will be presented to them. So it's really going to be a market decision of whether they're going to buy the house. And that's going to ultimately drive the market value of the home for the seller, the developer. So the developer has an interest to try and keep those costs as low as possible. But we all do. I mean, the CSD, the future CSD wants to keep costs of ownership down as well. Most CSDs try to keep cost of ownership down. I mean, that's, otherwise we get people coming to meetings and complaining, right, Chris? I mean, so you try to keep costs down.
Good job, you're keeping them from complaining.
So the point of that digression is that both the developer and the nascent CSD have the same motivation on this, which is to try to make it a very efficient entity to manage these systems on the peninsula while providing fire medical aid service on the peninsula.
Troy?
Yeah.
It seemed like to me, I mean, to me it sounds very positive to the homeowners and also to the community in Samoa. And it sounds like to me that if you was to able to be a CSD and you took on recreation as one of your things, you would control more of what's happening out here. Because right now there's no control.
That's a great point.
And I think that, our area is developing in recreation and tourism, but I hear people coming out here all the time that I wouldn't want them out here.
Yeah, there's a great example I can highlight that can highlight your point. The county has been considering transferring some of the recreational venues owned by the county out here to the CSD if we're formed. One of them is the RV, a boat ramp and camping area down across from the airport.
Right.
Now it's sort of a problematic part for the county because it's really far from their base of operation and they have problems out there. They have problems with caretakers and problems with maintenance and Well, just so happens that it's also a problem site for the fire department. We get calls at 2 o'clock in the morning, there's a disturbance, or there's a stabbing. And so it's kind of a problem for both of these two agencies right now. And if the community services district was managing that facility, we could control it a bit to reduce the fire call volume. So it'd be a win-win, there'd be some synergy there. So I think that's a really good good point. Yeah, control, yeah. Any other questions or comments?
Just a point of reference, a lot of people don't realize that the town of Samoa was actually bought in the year 2000.
It's amazing.
It's 17 years now that this whole project has been in limbo. I've lived in Samoa now for almost 40 years, and it's dilapidating, the infrastructure is breaking down, and we're just fortunate enough to have volunteers to do the fire department. I mean, this is, we're very fortunate that you and the rest of the people, are still out there.
It's a committed bunch of people, and it's an honor to work with them all, for sure.
So Richard, if I or Truman Broman had bought that wouldn't be your circumstance.
To be clear, that as the harbor district develops their sites, that will automatically be indexed to accrue to a potential service district. Whether the site was bought fee title or by use through the harbor district.
That's a great question. And so as the harbor district has acquired lands, they become in public ownership, and public agencies often don't bill public agencies for, in fact, it's against federal appropriations law to bill a public agency for something that is being provided to everybody in the district. So what the harbor district and the fire department worked out very closely is a possessory use tax. The lessee of those properties would contribute to the fire department's revenue stream. And that's actually being worked on right now by Humboldt County to put that in place. So we very appreciate that the harbor district's been very supportive. I should mention the harbor district submitted from the commissioners a letter of support for this activity, as did the water district, and as did several of the other stakeholders in the peninsula, including Water Quality Control Board. They sent a letter of support.
So the current tenants at the Fulton site are contributing then, since they're lessees?
We're working towards them contributing. We're putting in place the legal instrument to make that happen.
That's a possessory?
The possessory use tax, yeah. So yeah, that was thanks to Harbor District's legal counsel working with us to try and find a solution that didn't violate federal appropriations law, but did help the Harbor District, tenants basically pay for fire service.
Right on.
These are all really good questions. I appreciate it. I appreciate the opportunity to come and speak to your group. It's a great group, and it's fun seeing the familiar faces. It's a small town, and almost everybody in the room from sometimes multiple interactions, so.
Well, thank you so much for coming tonight. We really appreciate it.